My name is Lorraine Natasha West. I am an artist and jewelry designer. I was born in Central Islip, New York. I am the fifth child of 6 children. My parents are from the Caribbean, but they met in America and got married and had children, and here I am. I've been an artist since I was a child. I have a degree in fine arts, a focus in illustration. And during my junior year, I decided I wanted to play around with some type of three-dimensional form. So I bought some pliers and wire and beads and just kind of taught myself how to make jewelry. And 20 years later, now I'm a fine jeweler full-time, and I've never thought that that's what I would have focused on, but I'm just so happy that I did go in that direction. I'm a mom. I have a 7-year-old son. His name is Solomon. And it's been such an amazing experience to relive childhood, because there's a lot of things as a child that I didn't get to experience. And he keeps me mindful of being patient, being loving, being caring, even in the challenging times, because it's important for him to feel unconditional love. So that's how I mother, like that's the goal, you know, and learning how to balance discipline with love, you know. He basically is like healing my heart and my soul on so many levels, again, because of some of the experiences I went through as a child. Last one. One more. Get it? All right, let's go.
Bye.
I can remember as far back as maybe like 4 or 5. My dad started messing with me sexually. I don't quite remember when penetration started, but I do have clear, vivid images in my mind of when it did happen. I remember clearly, probably around 6 or 7, when my dad started penetrating me. He molested me from, I say from 4 to 14. It started to slow down as I got a little bit older, because he was having an affair with my half sister, and she's my blood. She's my mom's first child from her first marriage. So we come from the same mother, and my dad started abusing my 3 eldest sisters when they were very young. The first recollection of something happening was 4 years old, and it was late at night, which sometimes he would keep me up late at night, or he'd tell me to come meet him in the middle of the night in the den. And the den was his like private domain. Like, you know, we couldn't just go downstairs freely. He'd have to like invite us there. And my other siblings would be asleep. My mom would be asleep. And I remember we were watching television. The back door was open. He took me outside, And then we came back inside and a commercial came on, a woman, like a hair commercial. She's like washing her hair. And then he just started like looking at me a certain way and then touching me and things like that. This is the den where a lot of the abuse used to happen. In this photo is my mom off to the right. My dad is on the couch. My sister has her arms wrapped around him. And I am hiding behind my sister. I was really bashful when it came to photos when I was a kid. Or I would say when it came to taking photos with my dad, the bashfulness would come out. This is the first time I've ever seen my sister embrace my dad. Luckily, my sister avoided intense abuse from my dad. He did try to make advances at her, but luckily he didn't go all the way. She's my sister from my mom's first marriage. We have different fathers, but my dad raised her. One day my dad was home from work and I missed the bus. And I lived pretty far from the school. So he offered to take me to school. And he was extra mean and just checked out almost, because this is somebody that has always been very protective of me, because if you're violating something, you have to kind of protect it so it doesn't go out and tell the truth on you, right? So, you know, as a child, I didn't go to birthday parties. I couldn't hang out with friends. School was like my refuge. Like, school was everything to me because I could be social. I could just forget about the things that were happening in my house. But that day that he took me to school, he was just complaining about things that made no sense, because that's what people like him do. You know, they just project. And he kicked me out of the car. He said, you know what, get out of the car. So I had to walk to school, which was pretty far. And I knew then this guy he's up to something. Like, he's either gonna like try to kill us or bounce, and I'm not having it. So I just mustered up the strength to tell my best friend that I had since 7th grade the truth about my life. I never ever told anybody about it. You know, I wrote it in a journal. I gave it to her to read. And that day, in 8th grade, she came out of her classroom bawling, crying, and we both realized that it's time. Like, we, you know, with her support and my third eldest sister's support, I told some teachers and our guidance counselor in school. And the next day, they came to question me, Child Protective Services. I told them what happened, and they went to get my dad. It was a rainy day in May. It was the end of the school year. And it was the heaviest rain I've ever seen. And I don't really know if it was the heaviest rain that I've ever seen, or maybe because the day was so dramatic that it seemed like it was the heaviest rain. But it was heavy, right? And only my sister knew, and my best friend, and about 4 teachers and the guidance counselor knew. I remember the guy that came to question. He had on like a tweed blazer and a long beard and glasses, gray beard. Very nice, very gentle. He had his legs crossed with his notepad. And he asked me questions, like very simple questions, you know, about things that my dad did. And I had to answer yes or no. I answered yes to all the questions. And then immediately after the last question, he gets on the phone and he's like, go. So that means like for the police to go to my house. After my dad was taken away, I feel like my life began in terms of me being able to make my own choices socially. I had a boyfriend in junior high school, but we had only kissed one time in the hallway. It was so embarrassing. All my friends were around. That was before my dad left. But I didn't have a consensual experience with someone until I got into high school. So I was around 15 or 16. I had a boyfriend, and it was the first time that I made a decision to have sex with someone. And it seemed to be pretty normal. I mean, I experienced it. It's not like it was something new, so it wasn't hard for me to try it. I have spoken with other women that have been through the same thing as a child, or even an adult, like being violated sexually. And sometimes some women don't feel the desire to have sex, but for me, I had a desire. Like I wanted to have it on my own accord, on my own terms. I wanted to see what it was like to experience sex and intimacy without the trauma connected to it. This is my mom on her wedding day. My mom actually inspired me to design jewelry. She had these two amazing wedding bands that she gave to me when I was a teenager, and I ended up losing them. And losing them inspired me down the line in my 20s to design jewelry. But let's take a look at my mom's face and her body language in this picture. She doesn't look too happy. One of the things she shared with me was that before she married my dad, she knew that he had a lot of issues, but she thought she can change him. And that was one of the things she told me as a adult, that you really can't change anyone but yourself. And she learned the hard way. She had no clue what was in store for her on this day. My fiance did a remix of her picture and turned it into this beautiful work of art. If you notice, she has a scepter in her hand, and my interpretation of it is my mom overcoming and conquering the abuse. My mother was able to remarry, and her third time was a charm. And my stepdad is like one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. He was able to give me that love and support from a father figure later on in life. So I'm really grateful for that. They're very much in love, and they have a wonderful union together. Also, I always saw my mom as my queen. Like, my mother has always been supportive of me through my life, through illnesses as a child, and just a sense of support. When it came to everyday life, there was a time 2 years ago that I woke up one morning, and the first question that came up in my mind was, what happened to the blood? Like, I didn't ever think about that any other time in my life. That usually when you have sex for the first time, they call it, popping your cherry and you bleed. I don't remember seeing that, but I'm sure it happened. And being that my mom was the type of mother that noticed a lot of things with us, and always made sure like we washed our underwears by hand and different things like that. Did my dad like cover it up so perfectly that she never saw that? Or did she see something? I don't know. But that was the question that I had. And I got really, really angry for the first time, like really, really angry at my mom. And so angry that I felt guilty for being angry because I love her so much. And it was just bothering me. And when I went to visit her that summer, I just felt so uncomfortable around her. Like I was really snappy and just giving attitude. And I don't even know how much she noticed it because my form of attitude is still not rude. But for me, I could tell I was off. And after that trip, I realized like I have to talk to her. So some months went by, and one day I just gave her a call and told her I had some questions for her. And I asked her if she knew about what happened to me with my dad. And she said no. Um, and it's one of those things like I'm really not sure, right? You never know. Only she knows the truth. But I told her, I said, I'm going to trust that you're being honest with me, and I'm going to move on from that because I'm not here to make you feel bad about anything. I just have questions and question a lot of things. Um, you know, did she know the extent of the relationship with my eldest sister that's with my dad? Did she understand? Why did she put up with it if she did? And it was really hard for her to answer these questions. I have chosen to forgive her, even if she knew, right? It's to me, I feel like, how could you not know? Like, I pay attention to everything with my child. I don't care if it's like a little bump on him. I'm like, where is that? You know, what is that? Or I'm always paying attention, you know? And she paid attention to everything else that I knew of except that, you know? And never told us about birds and the bees, never, you know, talked about those things. But also my mom talked about how she was fatherless. You know, my grandmother wasn't very caring for my mom. You know, she didn't give her like the emotional love. So I think my mom was looking for it, and she was trying to find it in her husband's, you know. And I'm so grateful that she did find it the third time. You know, she has an amazing husband now who's been very supportive, and I've actually been able to share with him some of the things that I've been through. Sometimes I can go to him and talk to him first to say, hey, how do I talk to my mom about this? Because he accepts and loves my mother unconditionally like no other grown man has ever done that I've ever seen, you know? So it's pretty amazing, like the dynamic, but I don't know what my mother thinks about it. You know, I'm sure she's hurting inside. You know, I can't imagine what it's like to be in her position. I remember the first week that my dad wasn't there, like she was just like a zombie basically. Like she just could barely function, you know. But we just never talked about it, you know. And back then I didn't have the bravery and courage to ask my mother at the time. You know, like I was still very timid even though I, you know, had this huge success, you know, of releasing my dad from our lives. But I'm an adult now. You know, I have a child now. So I felt like, you know what? I'm going to say this. I'm going to get it out. I don't know how it's going to land on my mom. I don't know how she's going to internalize it. I don't know what she's going to say. But I can't make her say what I think I want to hear. You know what I mean? So she said to me, what do you want me to do? Like, I didn't want to pick up and leave when we had this beautiful house that I invested so much money in. Why do I have to leave? You know? And I told her, I said, it would have been better if we just lived in a shelter just to get away from this dude rather than live in this beautiful house and stay getting abused. You know what I mean? But again, I don't know what it's like to be my mom. I'm not an immigrant. She came here with nothing, you know what I mean, and built this beautiful space. And for some people, it is about what they've worked hard for. You know what I mean? So, and I'm very grateful for that beautiful home I grew up in. You know, but at the same time, it just comes down to forgiveness. Like, you have to just pick and choose. Like, am I going to stay angry at her, or am I going to forgive? And I feel like in her twilight of adulthood, I'm not going to harbor anger. I'm not going to do that. You know, I just have to look. I just have to look at the gratitude. I have to just be grateful, and the gratitude will win. You know, so I forgive my mom. I forgive her, whatever it is, whether she knew or not. I forgive her. You know, I forgive her, and I hope that if she did know for a fact, like, things were happening to me, that she's able to forgive herself and able to truly be honest with herself, and just admit, like, listen, I didn't protect my children to the best of my ability. But again, if she doesn't see that for herself, I can't make her see that, and I'm not going to make her feel bad about it.